My son-in-law forgot his leather briefcase when he left for work. I picked it up to put it away when the clasp came loose documents scattering everywhere. When I saw what was inside, I couldn't breathe. The word "dad" that he'd been calling me suddenly felt disgusting. My son-in-law wasn't a devoted husband. He was a fraud, an abuser, a sinister monster. He wanted to control everything: our money, my daughter, even the lives of my 2 grandchildren. But I had made a plan. I would put him in prison. Soon it would all be over. Thank you for being here. What Frank discovered next was even worse. Have you ever trusted someone close only to realize they were wearing a mask? Share your thoughts in the comments. Brief reminder: this is fictional storytelling for entertainment. Characters and events are imaginary, though themes about family protection may resonate. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning in Minnetonka. I woke at 6:30, same as always, to the soft light filtering through the bedroom curtains. The house was quiet, the kind of peaceful quiet you only get before the world wakes up and demands your attention. I'm Frank Mitchell, 67 years old, retired professor of American literature from the University of Minnesota. These days, my mornings aren't about lectures and office hours anymore. They're about pancakes, school lunches, and making sure 2 energetic kids get out the door on time. 3 years ago, after Dorothy died in that car accident, I thought my life was over. We'd planned our retirement together, travel grandchildren growing old in the house we'd built in Minnetonka. But life doesn't care about your plans. One icy morning in February, and she was gone. Laura begged me to move in with her family. "Dad, you can't live alone in that big house." She'd set her eyes red from crying. "We have plenty of room. The kids would love having Grandpa around." I'd resisted at first. Didn't want to be a burden. But Claire and Ethan changed my mind. My granddaughter was 5, then my grandson barely 2. They needed me, and if I'm being honest, I needed them. So I sold the old house, helped Laura and Kevin with the down payment on this beautiful 2-story colonial in Minnetonka, and moved into the guest room that became my room. It wasn't the retirement Dorothy and I had dreamed of, but it was something. It was family. I padded downstairs in my slippers, careful on the hardwood floors. The kitchen smelled like the coffee Laura had set to auto-brew before she left for work. My daughter was always the early bird, had to be at her office by 7:30. She worked as an administrative assistant for a law firm downtown, a steady job that kept the family comfortable. "Morning, Grandpa?" Claire's voice rang out from the living room, where she was already dressed in her school uniform, watching cartoons with the volume low. "Morning, sweetheart. Where's your brother?" "Still sleeping." I tried to wake him, but he said 5 more minutes. She rolled her eyes in a way that reminded me so much of Laura at that age. I smiled and headed back upstairs. Ethan's room was an explosion of toys, books, and superhero posters. The little guy was buried under his Spider-Man comforter, only a tuft of brown hair visible. "Ethan, buddy, time to get up. School day." A groan emerged from beneath the blanket. "Don't wanna?" "I'm making pancakes." The blanket flew back. "Chocolate chip. Is there any other kind?" 10 minutes later, both kids were at the kitchen table. Claire was methodically cutting her pancakes into perfect squares, precise and careful, always thinking ahead. Ethan was drowning his in syrup, getting more on his shirt than in his mouth. "Easy there, champ. You're supposed to eat it, not wear it." I grabbed a napkin and wiped his chin. Kevin came thundering down the stairs, tie loose around his neck, phone pressed to his ear. My son-in-law was always moving fast, always juggling 3 things at once. He worked as a real estate agent, or so he said, and claimed his schedule was unpredictable. "Yeah, I'm on my way now," he was saying into the phone. "Tell them I'll have the paperwork by noon. No, it's not a problem." He grabbed his travel mug from the counter, filled it with coffee without looking up from his phone. Kevin was 38, fit, always dressed sharp. The kind of guy who looked like he belonged in a real estate magazine. Laura had met him 10 years ago at a friend's wedding. He'd swept her off her feet with flowers, fancy dinners, promises of the life she'd always wanted. At first, I'd been happy for her. Kevin seemed successful, stable, attentive, but over the years, something about him had started to bother me. Nothing I could put my finger on. Just, he was too smooth, too perfect. Never made mistakes. Never let his guard down. Jim, my younger brother, had said it 2 years ago. Frank, I don't trust him. Something's off. I'd defended Kevin then. You're being paranoid. He's been good to Laura. Now I wasn't so sure. Kids doing okay? Kevin asked, barely glancing at Claire and Ethan as he headed for the door. They're fine. Have a good day at work. Always do. He flashed that $1,000,000 smile, the one that probably closed a lot of deals. Oh, and Dad, thanks for covering mornings. You're a lifesaver. He called me Dad. Had since the wedding. I'd appreciated it at first. Now it felt hollow somehow. The door slammed and he was gone. Through the window, I watched him jog to his silver Lexus still on the phone. The car reversed down the driveway, and he was off to whatever appointment he had scheduled. Grandpa, can we stop at Dairy Queen after school? Ethan asked, syrup on his cheek. We'll see. Finish your breakfast first. I got them ready: backpacks, lunchboxes, jackets. Minnesota mornings in October were getting chilly. Claire was self-sufficient, but Ethan still needed help with his shoes. The school bus would arrive at 8:15. Love you, Grandpa, Claire said, hugging me at the door. Love you more, Pumpkin. Love you mostest, Ethan shouted, not wanting to be left out. I watched them walk down to the corner where the other neighborhood kids were gathering. Claire took Ethan's hand, making sure he didn't run into the street. Good kid. Responsible. The house felt too quiet after they left. I poured myself another cup of coffee and started cleaning up the breakfast dishes. That's when I noticed Kevin's leather briefcase sitting on the floor by the sofa. He'd forgotten it. That was odd. Kevin never forgot anything. His briefcase was like an extension of his arm, always with him, always locked. I walked over and picked it up. Heavy. Must be full of paperwork. I figured I'd catch him before he got too far. He couldn't have gotten more than a few blocks. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, briefcase in hand. That's when it happened. The latch must have been loose, or maybe I didn't have a good grip. The briefcase slipped from my hands and hit the hardwood floor with a heavy thump that echoed through the empty house. The latch gave way on impact. Documents exploded across the hardwood, white papers sliding in every direction, like a deck of cards, scattered by an angry dealer. For a moment, I just stood there staring at the mess. Then instinct kicked in. I dropped to my knees and started gathering them up, thinking only about putting everything back before Kevin realized what had happened. That's when I saw it. The letterhead on the first document stopped me cold. Property Transfer Agreement, State of Minnesota. My hands were shaking as I pulled it closer. The paper was thick, expensive, official-looking. At the top, in bold letters, Transfer of Real Property, 2847 Lakeview Drive, Minnetonka, Minnesota, 55345. Our address. The house Laura and I had purchased together after Dorothy died. The house where Claire and Ethan were growing up. The house I'd helped with the down payment, nearly $40,000 from selling my old home. I scanned down the page, my heart hammering against my ribs. Transferor Frank Mitchell and Laura Rhodes. Transferee Kevin Michael Rhodes. Property value $520,000. $520,000. My signature was there at the bottom, right next to Laura's. Both of us signing away the house to Kevin. Except I'd never signed this document. I'd never even seen it before. I looked closer, bringing the paper up to the morning light streaming through the window. The signature looked like mine, the distinctive way I looped my F, the sharp angle of the M in Mitchell. But something was off. The pressure of the pen was too even, too perfect, like someone had traced it carefully, studying every curve. A forgery. A damn good one. My stomach dropped as I reached for another document, this one clipped to a stack of pages. Transfer of recreational property. 1842 North Shore Road, Two Harbors, Minnesota. The cabin. Dorothy and I had bought that little place on Lake Superior 15 years ago. It wasn't much, just a two-bedroom A-frame with a stone fireplace and a view of the water. But it was our sanctuary. We'd spent every summer there watching the sunset over the lake, listening to the waves crash against the rocky shore. After she died, I couldn't bear to sell it. Laura understood. She'd taken the kids there last summer, said they'd made s'mores on the beach, told stories about Grandma Dorothy. Now Kevin was taking that too. Property value $95,000. $95,000. Another forged signature. Another piece of my life being stolen. I grabbed the next document, my hands no longer shaking, but gripping the paper so hard it crumpled at the edges. Account transfer authorization, First National Bank of Minnesota. The investment account. The one I'd set up 30 years ago when I started teaching at the university. Dorothy and I had been careful, conservative. We'd built it slowly, putting away what we could, letting compound interest do its work. It was supposed to be for emergencies, for Claire and Ethan's college funds, for giving Laura and the kids some security after I was gone. Account balance. $60,214. $60,214. Transfer to Kevin M. Rhodes' individual account. $60,000. 3 decades of saving, of sacrificing vacations and new cars and fancy dinners. Gone with a signature I never made. I sat back on my heels, surrounded by papers, doing the math in my head. The house, the cabin, the investment account. $675,000. Everything I had. Everything Dorothy and I had built together. Everything I'd planned to leave for Laura and the grandkids. Kevin was taking it all. But this wasn't some desperate scheme thrown together in a moment of weakness. These documents were professional grade. The forgeries were nearly perfect. The legal language was precise, airtight. Someone had planned this carefully, methodically. My son-in-law hadn't just decided to steal from us. He'd been preparing for this, maybe for months, maybe for years. How long had he been in our home, eating at our table, playing with his children, calling me Dad, all while plotting to destroy us? I looked down at the papers again, forcing myself to focus. There had to be more. If Kevin had gone to this much trouble, he wouldn't stop at just property transfers. I shuffled through the remaining documents. Bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize. Email printouts about transactions and wire transfers. A business card for a law office in Fargo, North Dakota. Why North Dakota? And at the bottom of the pile, a sticky note in Kevin's handwriting. Exit plan, October 25th, Mexico City. Don't forget passport. Exit plan, Mexico City, October 25th. That was less than 2 weeks away. He wasn't just stealing from us. He was planning to disappear. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Kevin was going to take everything we had and vanish. What about Laura? What about Claire and Ethan? Would he take them? Leave them? Did my daughter even know what her husband was planning? The sound of a car engine cut through my panic. I looked up, my heart stopping completely. Through the window, I could see Kevin's silver Lexus turning back into the driveway. He'd realized. He'd come back for the briefcase. I looked down at my hands. Papers everywhere. Evidence scattered across the floor. The briefcase lying open, its contents exposed. The engine cut off. A car door slammed. I had maybe 30 seconds. Maybe less. Footsteps on the front porch. Quick, purposeful. I heard the jingle of keys, the scrape of metal against metal as he found the right one. The deadbolt turned with a heavy click that seemed to echo through the entire house. The front door began to open. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I dropped to the floor, scooping up papers with both hands, shoving them back into the briefcase in no particular order. Property transfers mixed with bank statements. The sticky note about Mexico got crushed between pages. My fingers fumbled with the broken latch, trying to force it closed, even though I knew it wouldn't hold. The door swung open fully. "Dad," Kevin's voice. Casual, curious. I looked up from my position on the floor, one hand still pressing down on the overstuffed briefcase. Our eyes met. For a split second, I saw something flicker across his face. Suspicion, calculation. But then it was gone, replaced by that easy smile he always wore. "You okay down there?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His tie was still loose, his jacket over one arm. "Did something fall?" "Your briefcase." My voice came out steadier than I expected. I stood up, brushing off my knees, keeping my body between Kevin and the briefcase. "The latch must have been loose. Everything spilled out when I picked it up." I watched his jaw tighten, just for a moment. Then he laughed, short, controlled. "Yeah, that latch has been giving me trouble. I keep meaning to get it fixed." He walked toward me, hand extended. "I'll take it." Realized I forgot it about 2 blocks away. I bent down, picked up the briefcase, and handed it to him. Our fingers touched briefly as he took it. His hands were cool, steady. Mine were trembling. "Sorry about the mess," I said. "I tried to put everything back in order, but don't worry about it." He tested the latch, frowning when it wouldn't close properly. "Just papers. Nothing important." Nothing important. $675,000 in forged documents. My entire life savings. Nothing important. I was going to bring it to you. I continued, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "Figured you might need it for your appointments today." "Appreciate that, Dad." There was that word again. Dad. It used to make me feel welcomed, part of his life. Now it felt like camouflage. "But you didn't have to trouble yourself. I would have come back for it eventually." He was watching me too carefully, looking for something in my expression, my body language. Did he know, could he tell that I'd seen everything? No trouble. I moved toward the kitchen, putting distance between us, needing to do something normal with my hands. "Want some coffee before you head out, fresh pot?" "Can't. Running late already." But he didn't move toward the door. He stood there, briefcase under his arm, studying the floor where the papers had scattered. "Did you look through any of this stuff?" My heart stopped. "What?" I turned back from the coffee maker, forcing confusion onto my face. "No. Why would I? Just wondering. Some of it's confidential client information. Real estate deals, you know. People get touchy about privacy. I was just trying to pick everything up and get it back in the case." I poured myself a coffee I didn't want, just to have something to do. He barely looked at anything. Just saw a bunch of legal forms and numbers. The lie came easier than I expected. Maybe because I'd spent 30 years teaching literature, analyzing characters, understanding motivation, explaining how people wear masks. Now I was the one performing, and my life depended on the quality of my acting. Kevin nodded slowly. "Right, of course." He adjusted his grip on the briefcase. "Well, I should get going. Thanks again for trying to help." "Anytime." He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "Hey, Dad, The kids' school called about some permission slip for a field trip. Did Laura leave it somewhere? Kitchen counter, I think. Want me to check? No. I'll grab it tonight. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. See you later. The door closed behind him. I heard his footsteps on the porch, the car door slam, the engine start. Through the window, I watched the Lexus back down the driveway and disappear down the street. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. My legs gave out. I sank into the nearest chair, coffee cup shaking in my hands so badly that liquid sloshed over the rim onto the table. My entire body was trembling now, the adrenaline that had kept me steady during the confrontation flooding out all at once. He'd come back, stood right there, asked if I'd looked through his papers, and I'd lied to his face. I set down the coffee cup before I dropped it. My mind was racing, trying to process everything that had just happened. Kevin knew something was off. I'd seen it in his eyes, in the way he'd studied me, asked about the papers. He suspected, which meant I had even less time than I thought. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the camera. Then I stopped. The briefcase was gone. Kevin had it. All the evidence, the forged signatures, the property transfers, the note about Mexico, was driving away down Lakeview Drive in the back of a silver Lexus. I'd been so panicked, so focused on acting normal, that I'd handed everything back to him. Idiot, I muttered. Stupid old man. But wait, I'd seen the documents. I'd read them. I knew what he was planning. I knew about the house transfer, the cabin, the investment account, the exit plan on October 25th, just 10 days away. I knew about Mexico City and the passport. I just couldn't prove any of it anymore. Unless... I stood up, my legs still unsteady, and grabbed my phone again. I had seen those documents for maybe 5 minutes. Could I remember enough details to recreate them? Property values, account numbers, addresses? No. That wouldn't hold up. It would be my word against Kevin's, and he had the actual documents, forged or not, with signatures that would look legitimate to anyone who didn't know better. I needed help. Real help. From someone I could trust completely. I scrolled through my contacts and found the name I was looking for, Jim Mitchell. My younger brother, 63 years old, semi-retired doctor at Regions Hospital in St. Paul. The only person besides Dorothy who'd always had my back, no questions asked. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Frank, everything okay? Jim's voice was concerned immediately. We didn't usually talk during his work hours unless something was wrong. Jim, I need to see you. Today. As soon as possible. What's wrong? Are you sick? Are the kids? Everyone's fine. Physically. But I've discovered something about Kevin and I. My voice cracked. I don't know what to do. There was a pause. Then, I'm at the hospital until 3. Can you come to my office? We can talk privately there. Yes, thank you. Frank. Jim's voice was serious now. What did you find? I looked at the coffee cup, at my hands still trembling, at the empty spot where Kevin's briefcase had been sitting just minutes ago. Everything, I said quietly. I found everything. The drive to St. Paul felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. I gripped the steering wheel too tight, rehearsing what I'd say to Jim. How do you tell your brother that your son-in-law is planning to steal everything you own? And how do you convince him when you don't have evidence? By the time I pulled into the parking garage at Regions Hospital, my hands were shaking. I found Jim's office on the 4th floor. His assistant waved me through immediately. Jim stood as I entered, concern etched into his face. Frank, you look terrible. Sit. I sank into the chair. Jim, I need your help. Tell me everything. So I did. The forgotten briefcase. The documents spilling when I dropped it. The the forged signatures transferring our assets to Kevin's name. 3 documents. I said, my voice unsteady. The house, $520,000. Dorothy's cabin, $95,000. My investment account, $60,000. All with perfect forgeries of my signature and Laura's. Jim's jaw tightened. Do you have them? No. Kevin came back. I had to act normal, so I handed the briefcase back to him. I leaned forward. But Jim, these weren't amateur forgeries. They were professional grade. Someone spent serious money creating those documents. This is organized fraud. Jim stood pacing. Creating false property transfers, that's serious criminal activity. Kevin isn't some guy who got greedy. He's part of something bigger. There's more. I found a note exit plan. October 25th, Mexico City. Don't forget passport. He's leaving the country in 10 days. With everything. Jim ran his hand through his hair. Frank, does Laura know? I don't think so. She's been quieter lately, but I think she's scared of him, not complicit. Jim returned to his desk and pulled out a notepad. 2 years ago, I told you something was off about Kevin. Remember? I closed my eyes. Of course I remembered. It had been Thanksgiving 2 years back. After dinner, Jim and I had stepped outside. I don't trust him, Jim had said, watching Kevin through the window. He's too smooth. Everything's too perfect. His stories don't add up. I'd laughed it off. You're being paranoid. I've seen a lot of people, Frank. You learn to read when something's not right. And with Kevin, something's not right. I'd defended him. Told Jim to give the guy a chance. Now I wanted to kick myself for being so blind. You were right, I said quietly. I should have listened. This isn't about being right. It's about protecting your family. Jim picked up his phone. I know an attorney, Morrison. He's worked fraud cases before. Good guy, trustworthy. We'll tell him everything, see how to proceed. And then the police. Maybe. But we need to do this right. If Kevin gets wind that we're onto him before we're ready. Jim didn't finish. He didn't have to. He dialed, put the phone on speaker. After a brief conversation with the receptionist, a new voice came through. Morrison here. Jim, what's going on? David, I'm referring my brother Frank to you. He's discovered evidence his son-in-law has been forging documents to steal his assets. We're talking $675,000. A low whistle. That's grand theft. Does he have the documents? Jim looked at me. I shook my head. No, but he saw them. He can describe them in detail. That's problematic without physical evidence, but if what he's saying is accurate, this is serious. How soon can you come in? This week, tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll clear my morning. Thank you, David. After Jim hung up, we sat in silence. Through the window, the sun was sinking toward the horizon. Almost 5 o'clock. Write down everything you remember, Jim said, handing me the notepad. Every detail. Property values, account numbers, anything about those documents. We need to be as precise as possible. I started writing. The house address, the cabin location, the exact amounts. The name Ryan Foster I'd glimpsed on what might have been a passport application. My phone buzzed. A text message. I pulled it out, expecting Kevin. But it was Laura. Dad, can you watch the kids this weekend? Kevin wants to take me somewhere special to talk. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Somewhere special to talk. Jim. I showed him the message. His expression shifted from concern to alarm. Frank, you need to keep those kids with you this weekend. Whatever excuse you have to make, don't let Kevin take Laura anywhere alone. You think he'd hurt her? I think a man planning to flee the country with stolen money in 10 days might be willing to do whatever it takes to tie up loose ends. The words hung in the air between us. Through the office window, I could see the lights of St. Paul beginning to flicker on as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, Kevin was going about his evening, probably smiling, that perfect smile, playing the devoted husband and father. And in 10 days, he planned to disappear with everything we had, unless I stopped him first. When Kevin suggested taking Laura to dinner Saturday night, my first instinct was to say no. Find an excuse. Keep them both home where I could see them, but that would have raised suspicion. So instead I smiled and said, "Of course. The kids will be fine with me." Kevin had nodded, but something in his expression bothered me. It wasn't the look of a man planning a romantic evening with his wife. It was the look of someone checking off items on a list. After they left, I stood at the window, watching Kevin's Lexus disappear down Lakeview Drive. Laura had looked tired getting into the car, defeated almost. She'd barely said goodbye to the kids. I pulled out my phone and called Jim. "Frank, everything okay? I need a favor. Can you come watch Claire and Ethan for a few hours?" There was a pause. "You're going to follow them?" "Yes." "Frank, if Kevin catches you..." "He won't. But I need to know what he's doing, where he's taking her." "Jim, that text Laura sent somewhere special to talk. It's been eating at me all week." "Give me 20 minutes. Jim arrived in 15, letting himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago. Claire and Ethan were playing video games in the den, completely absorbed. "You're sure about this?" Jim asked quietly. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." I took Jim's car, a dark blue Honda that Kevin wouldn't recognize, and headed toward downtown Minneapolis. I'd overheard Kevin on the phone that morning mentioning a reservation at Cosmos. Upscale restaurant. White tablecloths and overpriced wine. The kind of place you take someone when you want to impress them. Or manipulate them. Traffic was light for a Saturday evening. I found parking 2 blocks from the restaurant and walked the rest of the way, collar turned up against the October wind. Through the restaurant's large windows, I could see the warm glow of candlelight, well-dressed diners, waiters moving gracefully between tables. And there, near the back, I spotted them. Kevin and Laura sat at a table for 2. But something was wrong with the picture. This wasn't a couple enjoying an intimate dinner. Laura sat rigid, her hands folded in her lap, barely touching her wine glass. Kevin was leaning forward, talking intently, his expression serious. I couldn't go inside. Too risky. Instead, I walked past the entrance and found a coffee shop across the street with a clear view through Cosmos's windows. I ordered a black coffee I didn't want and took a seat by the window. For 20 minutes, I watched them not eat. Kevin talked. Laura listened, occasionally nodding. She looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Then Kevin's phone buzzed. He checked it, said something to Laura, and stood up. He walked toward the restaurant's entrance. I hunched lower in my seat, but Kevin wasn't looking my direction. He stepped outside and lit a cigarette, something I'd never seen him do before. Had he always smoked? Or was this new stress? A man approached from down the sidewalk. Mid-40s, heavy build, wearing a leather jacket and jeans. Not the kind of person you'd typically see outside an upscale restaurant on a Saturday night. Kevin greeted him with a handshake. Too formal for a friend. Too casual for a business associate. They talked for maybe 2 minutes. I couldn't hear anything through the coffee shop window, but I could see body language. The stranger's posture was aggressive. Kevin's was placating, explaining something. Then Kevin reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Thick, bulging. The exchange was quick. Kevin handed over the envelope. The stranger opened it briefly, checking contents, then nodded and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of a parking garage. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos through the window. The angle wasn't great, the lighting worse, but I got several shots of Kevin outside the restaurant, the stranger, the envelope exchange. Not perfect evidence, but better than nothing. Kevin finished his cigarette, crushed it under his shoe, and returned inside. I watched Laura's face as he sat back down. She asked him something. He waved it off with a smile, probably claiming it was a work call. She didn't look convinced. They stayed another 40 minutes. Entrees arrived, but barely got touched. When the check came, Kevin paid with cash, unusual for someone who always used credit cards, trying not to leave a paper trail. I left the coffee shop before they did, hurried back to Jim's Honda and drove home fast. I needed to be there before they returned. Needed to look like I'd never left. Jim was reading on the couch when I burst through the door. Claire and Ethan were upstairs already in their pajamas. "Well," Jim asked. "He met someone. Gave him an envelope full of something, cash probably, or documents." I showed him the photos on my phone. "This isn't just about stealing from us, Jim. Kevin's involved in something bigger." Jim studied the grainy images. "We need to show these to Morrison on Monday." "Agreed." "Frank, you should get the kids to bed before Kevin and Laura get home. Act normal." I nodded, went upstairs and found Claire and Ethan brushing their teeth. Normal. I needed to be normal. "Grandpa, can you read us a story?" Ethan asked. "Of course, buddy." I read them 2 chapters of a book about dragons and knights. Tucked them in. Kissed their foreheads. Told them I loved them, all while my mind raced with images of that envelope, that stranger Kevin's face, as he handed over whatever was inside. Downstairs, I heard the front door open. Kevin's voice, too loud, too cheerful. "We're home." I came down to find them in the entryway. Laura looked exhausted. Kevin was all smiles. "Kids asleep?" he asked. "Just tuck them in." "Perfect. Thanks again, Dad." That word, Dad, like sandpaper on my nerves now. "How was dinner?" "Great, really great. Laura and I had a lot to talk about." He put his arm around her shoulders. She flinched slightly. "Right, honey." Laura nodded but didn't speak. "Well, I should head to bed myself," I said. "Long day." I went upstairs to my room but didn't turn off the light. I sat on the edge of my bed, door cracked open slightly, listening. For a while there was nothing. Then I heard their bedroom door close. Muffled voices. The voices got louder. Kevin's tone sharp, angry. Laura's defensive, then pleading. "Why do you keep lying to me?" Laura's voice carried through the walls, breaking with emotion. Kevin's response was too low to make out, but the tone was threatening. Something shattered. Glass, maybe. Laura cried out. I stood my hand on the doorknob. Every instinct screamed to go down there to intervene. But Jim's words echoed in my head. "If Kevin knows you're onto him before we're ready." I forced myself to stay put, to listen, to gather evidence, and to promise myself that this would end soon, one way or another. Late that Saturday night, around 2 a.m, I stood outside Kevin and Laura's bedroom door. The house had finally gone quiet. The argument had ended an hour ago, and I could hear Kevin's heavy breathing through the door, exhausted sleep after all that rage. This was my chance. I moved carefully down the hallway, avoiding the spots where the floorboards creaked. Kevin's home office was at the end of the hall, a small room he'd claimed as his own workspace. He always kept it locked, but tonight, in his anger and exhaustion, he'd left it open. My hands shook as I pushed the door wider. The office was neat, too neat. Kevin's laptop sat closed on the desk, a slim silver device that probably held every answer I needed. I sat down in his chair and opened it slowly, wincing at the soft click of the screen. The login screen glowed in the darkness. I needed a password. I tried Laura's birthday first. Incorrect. Then Claire's. Incorrect. I felt sweat forming on my forehead. One more wrong attempt might lock the computer entirely, or worse, trigger some alert that Kevin would see in the morning. I closed my eyes and thought. Kevin was meticulous, careful. He wouldn't use something obvious, but he also wouldn't use something he couldn't remember easily. His own birthday. I typed the numbers carefully, 03151985. The screen unlocked. I exhaled slowly and stared at the desktop. Dozens of folders, all labeled with corporate-sounding names. Q4 reports, client files, property listings. Everything looked legitimate, exactly what you'd expect from a real estate broker's computer. But I knew better now. I opened his documents folder and began searching. Most of the files were ordinary spreadsheets, contracts, listing photos. Nothing suspicious. I checked his downloads folder next, then his email application. Nothing. Frustration built in my chest. The evidence had to be here. Kevin was too careful to leave everything on paper, especially with the kind of operation Jim suspected he was running. Then I noticed something strange. At the bottom of the documents folder, there was a subfolder dated 2024. Inside that, another folder labeled Q4, and inside that, a folder with no name at all, just 3 dots. I clicked it. The folder opened to reveal 4 files. The first was a PDF labeled rf_passport_scan.pdf. I double-clicked it, and my breath caught. It was a scanned image of a United States passport. The photo was Kevin, unmistakably Kevin, with his dark hair and sharp jawline, but the name beneath the photo read, Ryan Michael Foster. Date of birth, March 15, 1985. Issue date, February 2024. This wasn't a forgery he'd bought. This was a real passport issued by the U.S. government under a completely different identity. How long had Kevin been someone else? I forced myself to keep going and opened the second file, Mexico_itinerary.pdf. It was a flight confirmation. Aeromexico flight, AM 665, departing Minneapolis-St. Paul International at 6:45 a.m. on October 25th. Destination Mexico City, one-way ticket. Passenger name Ryan Foster. 10 days from now. The room felt colder suddenly. Kevin wasn't just planning to steal our assets and disappear. He had an escape route, a new identity, and a flight out of the country in less than 2 weeks. I opened the third file. Accounts_master.xlsx. The spreadsheet loaded, and my eyes widened. Row after row of account numbers, bank names, and balances. Cayman Islands National Bank. Banco Internacional de Panama. First Caribbean International. The amounts varied. Some accounts held $50,000, others held $200,000 or more. I scrolled down. 14 accounts total. Combined balance over $2 million. Kevin hadn't just stolen from us. He'd been running this operation for years, funneling money through fake identities and offshore accounts. This was organized crime money laundering on a scale I couldn't fully comprehend. I clicked on Kevin's email application and searched for keywords transfer wire account. Dozens of messages appeared. Most were vague, using coded language about inventory and shipments, but a few were more explicit. One email thread from August discussed moving $180,000 through a holding company in North Dakota. Another from September mentioned a Fargo connection and someone named Petrov, who was reliable for larger transactions. Kevin had partners. This wasn't just one man stealing from his in-laws. This was a network. I heard a sound upstairs, a door opening, footsteps crossing the floor above me. My heart hammered. I minimized the email and stared at the screen, trying to decide what to do. If Kevin came downstairs and found me here, I didn't know what he'd do. Not anymore. The footsteps moved toward the bathroom. A door closed. I exhaled and turned back to the computer. There was one more file in the folder, and I needed to see it before I ran out of time. The file was labeled loose_ends.docx. I opened it. It was a simple document, just a list of names and addresses. Frank Mitchell, 2847 Lakeview Drive, Minnetonka, Minnesota. James Mitchell, 1243 Summit Avenue Street. Paul M.N. Beneath Jim's name. There was a photograph, a surveillance photo taken from across the street, showing Jim walking into Regions Hospital in his white coat. Someone had circled his face in red. Below the photo, a single line of text, knows too much. Handle after departure confirmed. The bathroom door opened upstairs. I closed the document, shut down the laptop, and stood up so quickly the chair rolled backward and hit the wall with a soft thud. I froze. Footsteps moved across the ceiling above me back toward the bedroom. A door closed again. I waited 30 seconds, then slipped out of the office and back down the hallway to my own room. My hands were still shaking as I closed the door and sat down on the edge of my bed. Kevin wasn't just planning to rob us and leave. He was planning to eliminate anyone who could stop him, permanently. The next afternoon, I stood in the driveway and waved as Kevin's SUV pulled away. Laura sat in the passenger seat looking tired. Claire and Ethan waved from the back windows, excited about their shopping trip to the Mall of America. Kevin had suggested the outing that morning at breakfast, his voice casual and friendly. "The kids need some new winter clothes. We'll make a day of it, maybe grab dinner at Rainforest Cafe." Laura had smiled, grateful for what seemed like a peace offering after last night's argument. I'd smiled too, and said I'd probably head over to Jim's place in St. Paul for the afternoon. Kevin had nodded. "Tell him I said hello." Now, watching the SUV disappear around the corner, I felt my chest tighten. I had 3 hours, maybe 4. I went back inside and climbed the stairs to Kevin's office. The door was closed but unlocked. Kevin had been careless this morning, distracted perhaps by the need to maintain appearances. Last night I'd found the digital evidence. Today I needed to find the physical proof. I started with the desk drawers. Financial documents, business cards, a few personal items, nothing useful. I checked the filing cabinet next, flipping through folders labeled with client names and property addresses. Still nothing. I stood in the center of the room and looked around thinking. Kevin was meticulous. He wouldn't leave something as important as a fake passport sitting in an obvious place. But he also couldn't hide it too well. He needed quick access if he had to run. My eyes moved to the closet. It was a small walk-in filled with Kevin's suits and dress shirts. I pushed the clothes aside and examined the walls, looking for any sign of a hidden panel or safe. There, on the back wall, behind a stack of shoeboxes, a small metal safe, maybe 2 feet wide and a foot tall. I pulled the boxes away and knelt down. The safe had a digital keypad, but when I tested the handle, it opened. Unlocked. Either Kevin had forgotten to secure it, or he was getting sloppy in his planning. I swung the door wide and stared at the contents. 3 items. The first was a passport, not a scan this time, but the real thing. Dark blue cover, gold eagle emblem. I opened it carefully. United States of America. Passport. The photo was Kevin. The name was Ryan Michael Foster. Date of birth, March 15, 1985. Issue date, February 14, 2024. The passport looked completely legitimate, crisp pages, proper holograms, official stamps. This wasn't a forgery. This was real. How had Kevin obtained a genuine U.S. passport under a false identity? How deep did this conspiracy go? I set the passport aside and picked up the second item, a thick envelope filled with cash. I counted quickly. $100 bills bound in stacks of 50, 3 stacks total, $15,000. Escape money. Enough to disappear for weeks, maybe months, while Kevin accessed his offshore accounts and established himself in Mexico City. I took out my phone and photographed everything: the passport cover, the photo page, the cash. My hands shook as I worked, and I had to steady my wrist against my knee to get clear shots. Then I saw the third item, a handgun. It sat at the bottom of the safe, resting on a dark cloth. I didn't know much about firearms, but I recognized the make from movies and news reports: a Glock, compact, black, deadly. I stared at it for a long moment. Why did Kevin need a gun? The file I'd found last night flashed through my mind: Jim's photo, his address, the note that said, "Handle after departure, confirmed." Kevin wasn't just planning to steal and run. He was planning to eliminate loose ends. I forced myself to reach down and lift the gun carefully, keeping my finger away from the trigger. It was heavier than I expected, cold and solid in my palm. I turned it over, looking for any identifying marks. There was a serial number stamped on the side, but nothing else. I set it down and photographed it from multiple angles, making sure the serial number was visible. If I had to go to the police, when I had to go to the police, I'd need every piece of evidence I could gather. I placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. Gun at the bottom, cash on top, passport beside it. I closed the safe door carefully and tested the handle to make sure it looked undisturbed. Then I stacked the shoeboxes back in front of it and pushed the hanging clothes into place. The office looked exactly as it had when I'd entered. I went downstairs and sat down on the couch in the living room, picked up the TV remote, and turned on a college football game. My heart was still racing, but I forced myself to breathe slowly and focus on the screen. I'd been sitting there for maybe 10 minutes when I heard the garage door opening. My stomach dropped. They weren't supposed to be back for hours. I heard car doors slamming, then footsteps in the garage. The door to the kitchen opened, and Kevin walked in alone. No Laura. No kids. He stopped when he saw me and stood there in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Dad," he said slowly. "I thought you were going to Uncle Jim's." I kept my voice steady. "Change of plans. He texted me, said he got called in for an emergency at the hospital." Kevin nodded, but his eyes didn't leave my face. "I see. Where's Laura and the kids?" I asked. "Laura wanted to stop at Target. I forgot my wallet, so I came back to grab it." He walked past me toward the stairs, his footsteps deliberate. I sat frozen on the couch, listening to him climb to the second floor. I heard his office door open, then close. A long silence. My phone was in my pocket, the photos of the passport and gun still on the screen. If Kevin looked at his safe, if he noticed anything out of place. The office door opened again. Footsteps descended the stairs. Kevin appeared in the living room doorway, wallet in hand. He looked at me for a long moment, his jaw tight. "You know," he said quietly, "it's funny. I could have sworn I closed my office door this morning." I met his eyes. "Must have been the wind. You left the window open." Kevin smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Right," he said. "The wind." He turned and walked back toward the garage. I heard his car start, then pull away. I sat there in the silence, staring at the TV without seeing it. Kevin knew. Maybe not everything, but he knew something was wrong. And now I was running out of time. Monday morning, Jim and I drove to St. Paul together in his car. The sky was gray and heavy, with the promise of rain matching the weight I felt in my chest. Neither of us spoke much during the 40-minute drive. Morrison's law office was in a historic building downtown near the Cathedral of St. Paul. We parked on the street and climbed 3 flights of stairs to a door marked Morrison and Associates Attorneys at Law. The receptionist led us to a conference room with tall windows overlooking the city. Attorney Morrison was already there. A woman in her mid-50s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell," she said, shaking our hands firmly. Jim filled me in on the basics over the phone. but I need to hear everything directly from you. I sat down and pulled out my phone, opening the photo gallery. Where do you want me to start? The beginning, Morrison said, sliding a yellow legal pad across the table. And don't leave anything out. I told her everything. I started with the briefcase falling on Tuesday morning, the forged documents transferring our house cabin and investment accounts into Kevin's name. I showed her the photos I'd taken in the panic before Kevin came home. I told her about following Kevin to the restaurant downtown, watching him meet with a stranger and exchange a thick envelope. I showed her those photos, too grainy but clear enough to see Kevin's face and the transaction. Then I described breaking into his laptop, the hidden folder, the scanned passport under the name Ryan Foster, the flight itinerary to Mexico City on October 25th, the spreadsheet showing 14 offshore accounts holding over $2 million. Morrison's expression grew darker with each detail. And there's more, I said quietly. I pulled up the photos from Sunday, the physical passport, the $15,000 in cash, and the Glock 19 sitting at the bottom of Kevin's safe. Morrison stared at the images for a long moment, then looked up at me. Mr. Mitchell, this isn't just fraud. This is organized money laundering, identity theft, and with that firearm, possibly conspiracy to commit harm. Jim leaned forward. What can we do? Frank's daughter and grandchildren are living in that house with this man. Morrison tapped her pen against the legal pad. We need law enforcement involved immediately. This is beyond civil litigation. This is criminal. And if Kevin suspects he's been discovered, he could accelerate his timeline. She picked up her phone and dialed a number from memory. Detective Turner. This is Sarah Morrison. I have a situation that requires your expertise. Yes, financial crimes. No, it's urgent. Can you come to my office now? She hung up and looked at us. Detective Turner handles white-collar crime for the St. Paul Police Department. He's also worked with federal agencies on money laundering cases. If anyone can help us, it's him. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the conference room door. Detective Turner was in his early 40s, tall and lean with close-cropped dark hair, and the calm, assessing manner of someone who'd seen it all. He shook our hands and sat down across from Morrison. Show him everything, Morrison said to me. I went through it all again. The documents, the surveillance photos, the laptop, evidence, the passport, and gun. Turner listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small leather notebook. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. Kevin Rhodes, he said, as if testing the name. Or should I say Ryan Michael Foster? I froze. You know him? Turner nodded. We've been looking for Ryan Foster for 8 months. He's wanted in Nebraska for running a real estate fraud scheme, convinced elderly investors to put money into non-existent properties, then disappeared with over $300,000. My stomach turned. Kevin had done this before, to other families, other victims. The Nebraska authorities lost his trail in North Dakota. Turner continued. Looks like he reinvented himself as Kevin Rhodes moved to Minnesota and started over. He looked at me. Until he married your daughter. What do we do? I asked. He's planning to leave on October 25th. That's only 10 days away. Turner leaned forward, his expression serious. First, we need to keep Laura and the children safe. If Foster suspects we're onto him, he could panic. Men like this, when they're cornered, they become unpredictable. What about arresting him? Jim asked. I need to coordinate with Nebraska, get the warrant transferred to Minnesota jurisdiction. That takes time, paperwork, judges, protocols. 48 hours minimum. Turner looked at me. Can you keep up appearances for 2 more days? Act normal, don't let him know anything's changed. I thought of Kevin's cold stare yesterday, the way he'd said, "It's funny." I could have sworn I closed my office door. I'll try, I said. Morrison wrote something on her legal pad and slid it across to me. If Kevin becomes threatening in any way, if you feel Laura or the children are in immediate danger, call 911 first, then call me. Don't hesitate. Turner stood up. I'm going to start the coordination process today. I'll have officers ready to move as soon as the warrant clears. In the meantime, Mr. Mitchell, be extremely careful. Men like Foster don't leave loose ends. The phrase sent a chill through me. Loose ends. That's what Kevin's file had called Jim. We shook hands with Morrison and Turner, then made our way back to Jim's car. The rain had started a cold drizzle that matched the dread settling in my bones. You can stay with me, Jim offered as we drove back toward Minnetonka. Bring Laura and the kids. Get out of that house. If I do that, Kevin will know something's wrong, I said. He'll run, and we'll never catch him. Turner's right, we have to keep up appearances. Jim gripped the steering wheel tighter. Just for 2 days, Frank. Don't take any risks. We pulled into my driveway just after noon. Jim squeezed my shoulder once before I got out of the car. I walked into the house through the garage door and stopped. Laura was standing in the kitchen, her back to me, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Laura, I said softly. She turned around, and I saw her face red and swollen from crying. And there on her right arm, just above the elbow, was a dark purple bruise in the unmistakable shape of fingers. Someone had grabbed her. Hard. Sweetheart, I whispered, moving toward her. What happened? She looked at me with eyes full of fear and shame, and in that moment I knew. Kevin had hurt her, and it was only going to get worse. For a moment, Laura just stared at me, her eyes wide with panic. Then she turned away, pulling her sleeve down to cover the bruise. It's nothing, Dad, she said, her voice shaking. I just bumped into the car door yesterday, clumsy. I'd raised this child. I knew when she was lying. Laura, I said quietly. That's not from a car door. Her shoulders stiffened. Dad, please, I'm fine. I pulled out a chair and sat down, keeping my voice calm. Come sit with me. She hesitated, then walked to the table and sat across from me, arms wrapped tight around herself. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm not angry, I said carefully. Whatever you tell me, I'm here to help. Her hands trembled. A tear slid down her cheek. How long has Kevin been hurting you? 6 months, she whispered. Maybe longer. I forced myself to stay calm. Tell me what happened. Laura's voice was barely audible. It started with yelling, cruel things when he was stressed. I told myself everyone fights, but then he started grabbing me, pushing me. Once he threw a glass at the wall next to my head. I clenched my hands under the table. Yesterday after shopping, I asked about credit card charges I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars. He grabbed my arm and squeezed until I thought it would break. He said I had no right to question him. Did you call the police? She shook her head. I can't. Chica, why not? She looked up with raw fear in her eyes. Because he said if I told anyone, you Uncle Jim, the police, he'd take Claire and Ethan somewhere I'd never find them. He said he has resources to disappear with the kids, and I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if they were safe. The passport, the accounts, the flight. Kevin's threats weren't empty. He monitors everything, Laura said. My phone emails where I go. He put a tracking app on my car. I can't go anywhere without him knowing. I'm trapped, Dad. She broke down crying, and I pulled her into my arms. She clung to me like she used to when she had nightmares. Only this time, the monster was real. You're not alone anymore, I said. We're going to fix this. She pulled back, wiping her face. You don't understand. Kevin is more dangerous than you think. If only you knew. There's something else, Laura whispered. Kevin told me we're taking a family trip this weekend. He's been planning it, says it's a surprise for the kids. But Dad, you're not invited. Just the four of us. Ice flooded my veins. This weekend, not October 25th. Kevin was moving now. Where is he taking you? He won't say. Just keeps saying it's a surprise. Her hands shook. I'm scared to go, but if I refuse, I don't know what he'll do. I took her hands in mine. Laura listened carefully. I've been investigating Kevin for the past week. Her eyes went wide. What? I know about the forged documents, the stolen money, over $2 million in offshore accounts. I know he's planning to run, and I've contacted a lawyer and the police. The police? She looked terrified. Dad, if Kevin finds out, he won't. Detective Turner is working on an arrest warrant right now. Kevin will be in custody by Wednesday. But Kevin wants to leave this weekend. 5 days. I know. That's why you need to trust me. Pretend everything is normal. Don't let Kevin know anything has changed. I don't know if I can. Every time I look at him, I feel sick. You're not going on any trip, I said firmly. Before this weekend, Kevin will be arrested. You and the kids will be safe. Are you sure I wasn't? But she needed hope. I'm sure. And if Kevin threatens you again, call me immediately. Or 911. Promise me. She nodded. I promise. Where are Claire and Ethan? At school. Kevin dropped them off. Good. When they get home, act normal. Don't let them see you've been crying. She managed a weak smile. I know. I hugged her tight. I'm going to protect you and the kids. I swear it. As I held my daughter, I made a silent vow. Kevin Rhodes would never hurt my family again, even if I had to stop him myself. But then I heard it, the sound that made my blood run cold, the garage door opening. Kevin was home early. Laura's eyes went wide with terror. He wasn't supposed to be back until 5. I stood up quickly. Go upstairs, wash your face, I'll handle this. She hesitated. Go, I said firmly. She ran up the stairs just as I heard Kevin's footsteps in the garage. I moved to the sink and turned on the water, pretending to wash a coffee mug. The door opened. Kevin walked in, still wearing his suit from work. His eyes went immediately to the staircase, then to me. Frank, he said slowly. I didn't expect you home. Just having lunch, I said, keeping my voice casual. Laura made soup earlier. His jaw tightened. Where is she? Upstairs. Said she had a headache. Kevin stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he walked past me toward the stairs. Kevin, I said. He stopped, hand on the banister. Laura mentioned you're planning a family trip this weekend. He turned his eyes cold. That's right. Just the 4 of us? Some quality family time? Sounds nice, I said, meeting his gaze. Where are you going? It's a surprise. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You understand. I want it to be special for Laura and the kids. Of course. He climbed the stairs, and I heard him knock on the bedroom door. Laura's muffled voice answered. I stood there in the kitchen, hands gripping the edge of the sink. Wednesday. Turner said Wednesday for the warrant. But Kevin was planning to leave this weekend, which meant I had less than 5 days to stop a man who had nothing left to lose. And every hour that passed, my daughter and grandchildren were in more danger. Tuesday evening, I sat alone in the living room, pretending to read. The words blurred together. All I could think about was Laura upstairs with Kevin. Claire and Ethan had gone to bed an hour ago. I'd read them stories, The Hungry Caterpillar, for Ethan, Charlotte's Web for Claire. They'd fallen asleep, holding my hands, safe and unaware of the danger in their house. Around 9 o'clock, I heard raised voices from upstairs. Kevin's voice, sharp and angry. Laura's quieter, pleading. I set the book down and moved to the stairs. The voices grew louder. I climbed slowly, each step silent. The hallway was dark, except for a line of light under Kevin and Laura's bedroom door. It was open just a crack. I stood outside and listened. "Told you to be more careful with the credit cards," Kevin was saying, his voice tight with rage. "Do you have any idea how close you came to ruining everything?" "I'm sorry," Laura said, frightened. "I was just trying to understand." "You don't need to understand. You just need to do what I tell you." Pause. Then Laura. "Kevin, please. The kids can hear us." "The kids are asleep, and you better make damn sure your father stays out of my business too." My heart stopped. "Dad doesn't know anything," Laura said quickly. "I swear, Kevin, I haven't told him anything. He's been acting strange, asking questions, looking at me like he knows something. He doesn't, I promise. Please just leave him alone." Kevin laughed cold and ugly. "If your father knows anything, Laura, I swear you will never see those kids again. You understand me, I've worked too hard for this. I'm not going to let some nosy old man ruin it." "He doesn't know," Laura repeated, her voice breaking. "Please, Kevin. For your sake, I hope that's true. Because I'm not going to prison. Not for you, not for those brats, and definitely not for some old man who can't mind his own business." Then I heard it, a sharp crack. Kevin had hit her. My body moved before my mind could catch up. I reached for the door handle. Stop. I froze, every muscle screaming at me to protect my daughter. But a rational voice held me back. "If you go in now, he'll know you heard everything. He'll run tonight, takes Laura and the kids. Or worse, he has that gun. Desperate men do desperate things." I forced myself to let go of the handle. Inside, Laura was crying softly. Kevin's footsteps moved across the floor. "Clean yourself up," he said coldly. "And remember one word to anyone and you lose them. Permanently." I heard him walking toward the door. 3 seconds to move. I stepped back and turned toward the hall closet, pulling it open and pretending to search inside. My heart hammered. The bedroom door swung open. Kevin stopped when he saw me. "Frank," he said slowly. "I didn't hear you come upstairs." I turned, forcing my expression neutral. "Just now. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd grab a book." His eyes narrowed. "Really? At 9:30? Old man habits." I pulled a random book from the shelf. "This'll do." Kevin blocked the hallway, studying my face, trying to figure out how much I'd heard. "You know," he said casually, "these old houses, walls are thin, sound carries." "That right?" I met his gaze. "Haven't noticed." "Strange, because I could have sworn I heard creaking out here. Right outside our door." "Wasn't me. Just got up here." We stared at each other. The air felt charged, dangerous. Then Kevin smiled, cold and predatory. "Well, good night, Frank. Sleep well." He walked past me, shoulder deliberately brushing mine. I heard him go down to his office and close the door. The lock clicked. I waited, then moved to Laura's room and knocked softly. "Laura, it's Dad." The door opened a crack. Her face was red and swollen, a fresh mark blooming on her cheek. "Are you okay?" She nodded, tears streaming. "Did he see you?" she whispered. "He knows I was in the hallway, doesn't know how much I heard." Laura grabbed my arm. "Dad, you have to be careful. He's getting paranoid. He thinks someone's onto him." "I know. That's why we need to move fast." I glanced toward the stairs. "Lock your door tonight. If he tries to come in, call 911. Don't hesitate." "What are you going to do?" What I should have done days ago. I kissed her forehead and went back to my room. I waited 2 hours. Finally, around midnight, I heard Kevin's office door open, his footsteps climbing stairs. He tried Laura's door locked, then cursed and went to the guest room. I waited another 30 minutes until his breathing settled into deep sleep. Then I pulled out my phone and called Detective Turner. He answered on the second ring. "Mitchell. What's wrong?" "We need to meet first thing tomorrow morning," I said quietly. "He's threatening my family. He knows someone's investigating, and he's planning to leave this weekend with my daughter and grandchildren." Pause. "How urgent?" Turner asked. "He hit my daughter tonight. He's getting desperate." "Where are you now?" "In my room. He's asleep down the hall." "Do you feel safe tonight?" I looked at the chair wedged under my door handle. "For tonight, yes. But Detective, we're running out of time. If you don't move by tomorrow, he's going to disappear with them." Turner was quiet. "I'll make calls tonight. Meet me at the station at 6 a.m. We're going to end this, Frank." 6 a.m. I'll be there." I hung up and sat in the darkness. Somewhere down the hall, Kevin was sleeping, probably dreaming about Mexico, about freedom, about a new life built on stolen money and broken families. But tomorrow that dream was going to end, because I was done waiting. And I was done being afraid. I arrived at the St. Paul Police Department at 5:50 a.m., 10 minutes early. The building was quiet except for the night shift officers finishing their reports. A receptionist led me to a conference room on the second floor. Detective Turner was already there, along with a woman I recognized from our previous meeting, Officer Wilson. She was in her late 30s with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, and the focused expression of someone who'd seen too many domestic violence cases end badly. "Why, Frank," Turner said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit down. We don't have much time." I sat. "What's the situation?" Turner slid a file folder across the table. "Kevin Rhodes, or Ryan Michael Foster, his real name, has an active warrant out of Nebraska. He's wanted for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering totaling $2.3 million. The warrant was issued 8 months ago." $2.3 million, I repeated. "That's just what they could trace," Wilson said. "The actual amount is probably higher. Foster operated a real estate investment scam targeting elderly victims in Nebraska and North Dakota, convinced them to invest their retirement savings in properties that didn't exist." My stomach turned. Kevin had done this before. Multiple times. To people like me. Nebraska authorities lost his trail in Fargo, Turner continued. He went underground, created the Kevin Rhodes identity, and moved to Minnesota. That's where he met your daughter. And married her to access our assets, I said bitterly. Exactly. Your family was his next target. Turner opened another folder. Based on the evidence you've provided, the forged documents, the offshore accounts, the fake passport, we have enough to arrest him for identity theft fraud, an attempted grand larceny here in Minnesota. Combined with the Nebraska warrant, he's looking at 25 to 30 years. When can you arrest him? I asked. Wilson leaned forward. That's why we called this meeting. Frank, based on what you told Detective Turner last night, the threats, the physical violence against Laura, We need to get your daughter and grandchildren out of that house today. Not tomorrow. Today. Kevin told Laura they're leaving at 6 p.m. tonight, I said. He's calling it a family trip, but I know what it really is. A kidnapping, Wilson said flatly. Once he gets them across state lines, it becomes exponentially harder to track them. And with his resources, the money, the fake passport, he could disappear completely. Turner pulled out a map of Minneapolis and spread it on the table. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go home this morning and tell Kevin that you're taking Claire and Ethan to your brother's place. Jim's place in St. Paul, I said. Right. Tell Kevin that Jim called. There's a measles outbreak at the hospital where he works, and he wants to make sure the kids are up to date on their vaccinations. It's urgent, so you need to take them this morning. What about Laura? Wilson spoke up. This is critical, Frank. Laura needs to go with you. If you take the kids and leave her behind, Kevin will immediately suspect something's wrong. He might panic and hurt her. So how do we get her out without making Kevin suspicious? Tell him Laura's coming along because the kids are nervous about shots, Wilson said. She'll keep them calm. Kevin won't question that it's a completely normal parental thing. I nodded slowly, thinking it through. And once we're at Jim's, you stay there, Turner said. All of you. We'll have officers watching Kevin. The moment he tries to leave Minnesota, and we believe he will, once he realizes his family isn't coming back, we'll arrest him. We'll coordinate with Highway Patrol, airport security, and border checkpoints. What if he goes to the house looking for them? I asked. We'll have units nearby, Wilson said. If he attempts to force entry, we'll move in immediately. But Frank, she looked at me seriously. You need to understand something. Kevin has a Glock 19 in his safe. You confirmed that, which means we're treating him as armed and dangerous. When we make the arrest, there's a risk of violence. My hands clenched on the table. I understand. Turner checked his watch. It's 6:15 now. What time does Kevin usually leave for work? Around 8:30. He drops the kids at school first. Perfect. Go home now. Act completely normal. Make breakfast, read the paper, whatever your routine is. At 7:30, Jim will call your cell phone. Make sure Kevin can hear the conversation. Jim will tell you about the measles outbreak and ask you to bring the kids over right away. You'll agree, get Laura and the kids in the car, and drive to Jim's house. And then you stay put, Wilson said. Don't leave Jim's house. Don't answer calls from Kevin unless we tell you to. We'll handle everything from there. Turner stood up. Frank, I need you to be absolutely clear on this. Once you take Laura and the kids out of that house, there's no going back. Kevin will know something's wrong. He'll be desperate. That's when people are most dangerous. I understand, I said, but we're out of time. If I don't act today, he takes them tonight, and I might never see them again. Wilson put a hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing. We're going to keep your family safe. I stood up, feeling the weight of what was about to happen settle over me. What if Kevin doesn't run? What if he just waits? He won't, Turner said confidently. Men like Foster don't wait. They panic when their plans fall apart. He'll run, and when he does, we'll be ready. I shook both their hands and walked toward the door. Frank, Turner called after me. One more thing. If at any point you feel like you or your family are in immediate danger, call 911. Don't wait for us. Don't try to handle it yourself. I will. I walked out of the police station into the cold morning air. The sun was just starting to rise over St. Paul, painting the sky orange and pink. I got in my car and checked my phone. One new text message from Laura sent 3 minutes ago. Kevin just came home. He's packing suitcases. He says we're leaving at 6 p.m. tonight. Dad, please hurry. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. 6 p.m. That gave me less than 12 hours. I started the car and headed back to Minnetonka. It was time to bring my family home. I pulled into the driveway at 7 o'clock sharp. The sun was climbing over Minnetonka's rooftops. Everything looked peaceful, normal. But today, everything changed. I walked into the house. The kitchen light was on. Movement upstairs, Kevin getting ready. I made coffee, started breakfast. Eggs, bread, butter. My hands were steady. Claire came down first. Morning, Grandpa. Morning, sweetheart. Want scrambled eggs? Yes, please. She sat at the table. Are you okay? You look tired. Just didn't sleep great. I cracked eggs. Where's your brother? Getting dressed. Mom's helping him. Ethan thundered downstairs, shirt backward, hair wild. Grandpa, chocolate milk. Sure, buddy. Come here, your shirt's backward. Laura came down exhausted. Her eyes met mine as today, the day I nodded. Her shoulders relaxed. Kevin appeared dressed in a suit, phone in hand. Morning. Too cheerful. Forced. He filled his coffee mug, checked his watch. Big day. Lots to prepare for our trip tonight. Laura stiffened. I served breakfast. Kevin barely ate, typing constantly. The kids ate, normally oblivious. At 7:29, my phone rang. Jim's name. Sorry, need to take this. I put it on speaker. Jim, everything okay? Frank, thank God, I'm at the hospital. Measles outbreak, 3 confirmed cases. Health department requires immediate vaccination verification for all children under 10 who've had contact with the facility. I frowned, but the kids haven't been there recently. Laura and the kids were here last month. Ethan's ear infection, remember, we need to check their vaccination records today. Legal requirement, if you don't bring them in, the school district will be notified. Kevin looked up, listening. Can't it wait? I asked. We have plans. No. End of business today. Legal complications otherwise. Kevin's jaw tightened. All right. What time? As soon as possible. Come to my house, safer than the hospital. And Frank, bring Laura too. She can help keep the kids calm. You know Ethan with needles. Right. We'll be there soon. I hung up and looked at Kevin. You heard that? Measles outbreak. Convenient timing. It's not convenient, it's legal requirement. Jim said if we don't get them checked, they'll report to the school district. You don't want that attention, do you? His eyes narrowed. Can't you go later? Jim said as soon as possible. I cleared plates. Laura, get the kids ready. 15 minutes. Laura stood. Come on, Claire, Ethan, jackets. But I don't want shots. Ethan whined. It might not be shots, Laura said gently. Uncle Jim just needs to check paperwork. And if you're brave, maybe ice cream after. Before noon. Ethan's eyes widened. Special circumstances. Kevin watched us calculating, deciding if this was legitimate. How long will this take? An hour, maybe 2. I kept my back to him. We'll be back before lunch. Now we leave at 6 p.m., Frank. Everyone needs to be here packed and ready. We'll be back in time. I met his gaze. Quick trip to Jim's and back. Nothing to worry about. Kevin stared, then nodded slowly. Fine, but don't take too long. I understand. Laura came back with Claire and Ethan both in jackets. Claire had her backpack. Ready? I asked. Ready? Laura said softly. We walked toward the garage. Kevin's eyes followed us. Laura, Kevin called. We stopped. Laura turned. Kevin walked over, put his hand on her shoulder. Laura flinched. Be back soon, he said quietly. We have a big day ahead. I know, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, stepped back. We got in the car. I helped the kids with seat belts, Laura in passenger seat. I started the engine. Through the window, Kevin stood in the kitchen phone to ear watching. I backed out slowly. Normal. Claire leaned forward. Grandpa, why does Mom look sad? She's just tired, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. We drove down Lakeview Drive. I checked the mirror constantly. Kevin's Lexus wasn't following. We turned toward St. Paul. Still no Lexus. Laura exhaled. Dad, is this really happening? Yes. You're safe now. Ethan kicked my seat. Are we really getting ice cream? I smiled. Yes, buddy, after Uncle Jim. My phone buzzed. Text from Kevin. How long exactly? Laura typed from my phone. 1 to 2 hours, like I said. Response immediate. Call me when done. Laura put the phone down. Her hands shook. It's okay, I said quietly. By the time he realizes Turner will be ready. What if he comes after us? He won't have time. We crossed the Mississippi into St. Paul, almost there. Claire spoke up from the back. Grandpa, are we coming back home? The question caught me off guard. I glanced at Laura. She was staring straight ahead, tears running down her cheeks. Not for a while, sweetheart, I said gently. Why not? Because sometimes home isn't safe anymore. Ethan, oblivious, started humming a song from one of his cartoons. We turned onto the highway heading toward Jim's neighborhood. Traffic was light for a Wednesday morning. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the morning fog. I checked the rearview mirror again, and my heart stopped. 3 cars back, barely visible in the flow of traffic, was a silver Lexus. Kevin's Lexus. Laura, I said quietly, my voice tight. Don't turn around, but I think Kevin is following us. She went rigid. What? 3 cars back, silver Lexus. Her breathing quickened. Oh God, Dad, what do we... Stay calm. We're almost to Jim's. 5 more minutes. I pressed the accelerator, slightly moving into the left lane. The Lexus changed lanes, too. It was him. He'd suspected something, maybe from the moment we left, maybe earlier. And now he was following us, watching, waiting to see where we were really going. My phone was in the cup holder. I couldn't call Turner without Kevin seeing me on the phone. Couldn't pull over. Couldn't do anything except keep driving and pray we made it to Jim's before Kevin realized what was happening. Grandpa, Claire's voice was small, frightened. Why are you driving so fast? Just trying to get to Uncle Jim's quickly, pumpkin. In the mirror, Kevin's Lexus was getting closer. 2 cars back now. Laura grabbed my arm. Dad, he knows. He knows something's wrong. I know, I said, but we're not stopping. We're almost there. 1 car back now. I could see him clearly in the rearview mirror. Kevin's face cold and expressionless behind the wheel. His eyes locked on my car. He'd figured it out, and he was coming for us. Still with me, I really appreciate it. Leave a comment telling me, do you think Kevin will chase them or flee immediately? I read every response, and your insights make this community special. Just so you know, what follows includes some dramatized details for storytelling purposes. If that's not your preference, you're welcome to close the video here. My foot hit the accelerator. The car surged forward, engine roaring. My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Dad!" Laura's voice was panicked. "What are we?" "Hold on." In the rearview mirror, Kevin's Lexus accelerated too, closing the gap. No more pretending. He knew. "Grandpa," Claire's voice small and frightened. "Why is Dad following us?" I didn't answer. I needed to focus, get us to Jim's house. 5 more minutes. Laura grabbed the handle as I swerved into the right lane. A Honda honked. I didn't care. "Dad, he's getting closer." She was right. Kevin was 1 car length behind, weaving through traffic with reckless determination. My phone was mounted on the dashboard. I pressed voice command. "Call 911. 1 ring, 2 rings. 911, what's your emergency?" "Frank Mitchell. I'm being pursued by Kevin Rhodes, wanted in Nebraska for fraud. I have my daughter and grandchildren in the car. Highway 35E toward St. Paul, going to 1243 Summit Avenue." "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" I glanced in the mirror. Kevin was directly behind me. "Yes, less than 20 feet. Units are being dispatched. Keep driving. Do not stop." "What vehicle is he driving?" "Silver Lexus, Minnesota plates." I gave the number. "Officers en route. Stay on the line." "Grandpa, I'm scared." Ethan whimpered. "Almost there, buddy. Almost to Uncle Jim's." But we still had 3 miles. Kevin pulled left, trying to come alongside. I swerved left, blocking him. Horns blared. Kevin tried the right. I blocked again. "Frank!" Laura screamed as I nearly hit a pickup. "I'm sorry I have to." Kevin's Lexus rammed my rear bumper. The impact jolted us forward. Claire screamed. Ethan cried. "Sir, are you okay?" The operator's voice. "He hit us, rammed the back." "Officers 3 minutes out. Can you reach Summit Avenue?" "Tukum." Trying. I took the exit too fast. Tires squealing. Kevin stayed glued to my bumper. We flew through the neighborhood. 60 miles an hour past morning, newspapers, dog walkers, kids waiting for buses. An old woman on her porch grabbed her phone, staring as we roared by. "There," Laura pointed. "I see it. 1243 Summit Avenue. A 2-story colonial with white pillars. Jim and Officer Wilson stood on the porch, waiting. I yanked the wheel, right tires screaming, as I turned into Jim's driveway. The car fishtailed slightly on the gravel before I brought it to a stop. Kevin's Lexus screeched to a halt directly behind us, blocking the driveway, blocking any escape. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was our heavy breathing and Ethan's quiet sobbing in the back seat. Through the windshield, I saw Officer Wilson standing on the porch, hand resting near her weapon. Jim stood beside her, his face grim. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Kevin's Lexus idling behind us, exhaust curling in the morning air. The neighborhood had gone silent. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the screeching tires and the obvious confrontation unfolding on their quiet street. Kevin's door opened. He stepped out slowly, deliberately, and I barely recognized him. His face was red, not just flushed from exertion, but burning crimson with rage. Veins bulged in his neck and forehead. His hair, usually so perfectly styled, stuck up at odd angles. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie pulled loose. His hands trembled at his sides. This wasn't the smooth, charming man who'd married my daughter. This was someone else entirely. Something else. His eyes locked on our car, on Laura in the passenger seat, her hand pressed against the window. His chest heaved. His jaw worked. Then he exploded. Laura. The word came out as a roar that echoed down the quiet residential street. Dogs started barking in nearby yards. More neighbors appeared on porches and lawns. Laura flinched at the sound of her name, pressing herself back against the seat. "Laura!" Kevin shouted again, taking a step toward our car. His voice cracked with fury. "Get the kids and get in my car." I opened my door and stepped out, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. I positioned myself between Kevin and my family. Kevin's eyes snapped to me for a brief second, pure hatred in that glance, then back to the car where Laura sat frozen. "Now!" he screamed. "Do it now!" Behind me, I heard our car doors unlocking. Laura was getting the kids out, but on the far side away from Kevin. Smart girl. Officer Wilson moved down from the porch. Her boots were loud on the wooden steps in the sudden silence. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. She stopped at the bottom of the porch stairs, maybe 20 feet from Kevin. Her stance was casual but alert. Professional. Her right hand rested near but not on her service weapon. "Mr. Rhodes." Her voice cut through the tension like a knife. Calm, steady, authoritative. Kevin's head whipped toward her. His face somehow got even redder. "Stay out of this." He jabbed a finger in her direction. "This is a family matter. You have no right." "Mr. Rhodes." Wilson interrupted him, taking one more measured step forward. "I'm Officer Wilson, St. Paul Police Department." Kevin's hands clenched into fists. His whole body was rigid with barely controlled rage. "I don't care who you are," he spit out. "Those are my children in that car. My wife." Behind me, I heard Jim helping Laura and the kids toward the house. Quick footsteps on gravel. Claire was crying. Ethan was asking questions I couldn't make out. Kevin heard them too. He started to move forward. Wilson shifted her weight, ready to intercept. "Sir," she said, her voice still calm, but with steel underneath. "I'm going to need you to stay where you are. Laura, Claire, Ethan inside. Now." My voice was sharp, commanding. Laura didn't hesitate. She grabbed both kids by the hands and ran toward the porch where Jim stood, waiting, arms outstretched. Kevin took a step forward. Officer Wilson moved to intercept him. "Those are my children." Kevin's voice cracked with rage. "You have no right to keep them from me." "Sir, step back." Wilson's hand moved closer to her weapon. "We've received reports of domestic violence and this is kidnapping." Kevin's face went even redder. He jabbed a finger at me. "Frank kidnapped my family. This is illegal. I'm calling my lawyer." I turned to face him fully. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady, cold. "Kevin, stop. It's over. I know who you are." His eyes locked on mine. "Ryan Foster." The color drained from his face. Just for a second, barely a heartbeat, but I saw it. Recognition. Fear. Then he forced a laugh. Hollow, desperate. "You're a confused old man losing his mind. You don't know what you're talking about." Behind me, I heard Jim ushering Laura and the kids through the door. The sound of it closing, locking. Good. They were safe. I took a step toward Kevin. "Nebraska," I said. $2.3 million. Wire fraud, money laundering, the forged documents transferring our property into your name, the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, 14 of them, last time I counted. Kevin's jaw worked, but no sound came out. "Should I continue?" I asked. "Or do you want to keep pretending?" "You don't have proof of anything," Kevin said, but his voice had lost its power. "The passport in your safe," I continued. "United States passport issued February 2024 under the name Ryan Michael Foster. Date of birth, March 15th, 1985. One-way ticket to Mexico City, October 25th. The Glock 19 sitting at the bottom of that same safe next to $15,000 in cash. Kevin's fists clenched at his sides. The file on your laptop labeled loose ends with Jim's photograph and home address marked handle after departure confirmed. I let that sink in. Do I need to continue? Kevin stood frozen. His face had gone from red to white. His hands trembled. You went through my things, he said quietly. You broke into my office, into my safe. That's illegal. So is fraud. So is identity theft. So is threatening to murder my brother. Kevin's eyes darted to Officer Wilson, to the neighbors watching from their lawns, to Jim's house, where Laura and the kids were locked safely inside. Then back to me. And something snapped. He lunged past Wilson, not at her, but around her toward the house. Laura. His voice was raw, desperate. If you don't come out here right now, I swear. Wilson grabbed his arm. Sir, that's enough. Kevin yanked free and kept moving toward the door. Laura, listen to me. Your father is lying. He's trying to destroy our family. Jim appeared at the window phone pressed to his ear, probably calling for more backup. Kevin reached the door and pounded on it with both fists. Open this door. Wilson was right behind him now, one hand on his shoulder. Mr. Rhodes, I'm ordering you to... Kevin spun around, shoving her back. Not hard, but enough to create space. Don't touch me, he snarled. Wilson's expression hardened. Her hand went to her radio. I need backup at 1243 Summit Avenue. Suspect is becoming aggressive and... Kevin ignored her. He turned back to the door, pounding again. Laura, please. You have to believe me. I love you. I love our kids. This is all a misunderstanding. Inside, I could hear crying, Claire's voice muffled but audible. Mommy, what's happening? Kevin heard it too. His pounding intensified. Claire, sweetheart. Daddy's right here. It's okay. I moved closer to the house, pulling out my phone. I unlocked it and opened my photo gallery, the evidence I'd been collecting for the past week. Kevin, I said. He turned wild-eyed. I held up the phone. You want to know what I have? Look. I scrolled through the photos. Your safe. Your passport. Swipe. The forged property transfer documents. Swipe. The offshore account spreadsheet showing over $2 million. Swipe. The loose ends file with Jim's photo. Kevin stared at the screen, his breathing ragged. Where did you? His voice cracked. How did you? Does it matter? I looked at Officer Wilson. I have copies of everything. I've already sent them to Detective Turner and Attorney Morrison. Kevin's face twisted with something between rage and desperation. You had no right. Those are my private. You forged my signature, I said quietly. You tried to steal everything I own, everything my wife and I built together. You threatened to murder my brother. You hit my daughter. At that, Kevin's mask finally shattered completely. She deserved it, he screamed. Always questioning me. Always snooping just like you. You couldn't just let me. He stopped, realizing what he'd just admitted. Officer Wilson took a step forward. Mr. Rhodes, you just confessed to... A siren cut through the air. Detective Turner's unmarked sedan came into view, lights flashing in the grille. Behind it, 2 patrol cars. Kevin looked at the approaching vehicles. At Wilson with her hand on her weapon. At me standing between him and the house. At the neighbors with their phones out recording everything. He was trapped. And he knew it. Turner's car pulled into the street, blocking Kevin's Lexus. He stepped out, hand on his holstered weapon. Kevin Rhodes. Turner called out his voice, carrying across the lawn. "You're under arrest." Kevin looked at Turner, at Wilson, at the patrol officers stepping out of their vehicles, then at Jim's house where his wife and children were locked away from him. His face went through a rapid series of emotions, rage, desperation, calculation, and then he made his choice. He bolted, not toward me, not toward the officers, toward his Lexus. "Stop!" Turner shouted. "Stop right there." But Kevin was already at his car, yanking the door open. Wilson started after him. "Sir, do not get in that vehicle." Kevin threw himself into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. Turner was running now, hand on his weapon. "All units, suspect is fleeing." Kevin threw the car into reverse. Tires screamed as he backed out, nearly hitting Wilson. She dove to the side, rolling on the grass. Then he slammed into drive and took off down Summit Avenue, the Lexus fishtailing as he accelerated. Turner was already back in his car, siren wailing. "All units, suspect fleeing south on Summit Avenue in a silver Lexus in pursuit." The patrol cars peeled out after them, sirens echoing through the quiet neighborhood. And then they were gone. I stood in Jim's driveway, breathing hard as the sound of sirens faded into the distance. Officer Wilson got to her feet, brushing grass off her uniform. "Mr. Mitchell, are you all right?" "I'm okay," I said. "Is Laura?" "Let's get you inside," she said. The door opened. Jim stood there, his face grim. I walked into the house on shaking legs. Laura was sitting on the couch with Claire and Ethan pressed against her sides. All three were crying. When Laura saw me, she stood up. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. "Dad," she whispered, "I saw everything on your phone. Jim showed me the passport, the accounts, the gun, the file about Uncle Jim." She looked at me with hollow eyes. "Who is he?" Her voice broke. "Who is my husband?" I sat down beside her, pulling her into my arms. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but we're going to find out." Outside, through the window, I could see neighbors gathering on lawns, talking in hushed voices. Somewhere out there, Kevin was running, and Detective Turner was chasing him. If you're still here watching this unfold, please leave a comment below. What do you think will happen when Kevin tries to escape? Will Turner catch him at the airport, or will something go wrong? Your thoughts matter to me, and I genuinely want to hear your predictions. Quick heads up, this story includes fictionalized elements designed for narrative impact. If you'd rather not continue, feel free to exit the video now. Kevin leaped into the Lexus, spun the wheel, and tore away from Jim's street at a terrifying speed. The screech of tires pierced the air as he floored the accelerator, leaving a streak of black rubber on the pavement. I stood on Jim's porch, heart pounding, as I watched the silver sedan vanish around the corner. Behind him, Detective Turner's unmarked car roared to life, its siren wailing as it gave chase. Inside Mitchell, Officer Wilson said, his voice firm. "Turner's in pursuit. We'll monitor updates on the radio." I turned back to see Laura clutching Claire and Ethan. My daughter's face was ghostly pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The two children looked at me with confusion and fear written across their young faces. They didn't understand what was happening. They only knew their father was running from the police. We retreated into the house. Jim closed and locked the door, though I knew Kevin was long gone. Wilson set his radio on the coffee table in the living room. Static crackled. Then Turner's voice came through. "Unit 412 in pursuit of suspect heading south on Summit Avenue. Speed approximately 90 miles per hour. Requesting backup." Unit 723 responding. What's your location? Just merged onto I-94 eastbound. Suspect is accelerating, now exceeding 110 miles per hour. I sat down beside Laura on Jim's couch, placing my hand on my daughter's shoulder. She was trembling violently. Claire and Ethan sat pressed against their mother, the two children holding each other tight. Current speed exceeding 145 kilometers per hour. Turner's voice crackled over the radio. Suspect weaving through lanes. Just ran a red light at the Highway 52 interchange. Heavy traffic. Need units ahead to set up roadblocks. 145 kilometers per hour on city highways. Kevin was driving like a maniac. He was going to kill someone or himself. Laura suddenly gripped my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. "I can't believe I married a monster," she whispered, her voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face. "My God, Dad, how many years? How many years did I live with him without knowing?" I held Laura close, letting my daughter cry against my shoulder. My heart shattered listening to her sobs, but at least she was safe now. At least Claire and Ethan were here with us, no longer within Kevin's reach. "Grandpa." Ethan spoke up, his voice small and trembling. "Is Daddy okay?" I looked down at my 6-year-old grandson, wide eyes full of innocence, lip quivering. How could I explain to a child that his father wasn't the man he thought he was? "Your daddy did some very bad things," I said slowly, choosing each word carefully. "Even the police have to stop him so he can't hurt anyone else. But he's our daddy." Claire said, tears streaming down her 9-year-old cheeks. "Why would he hurt people?" Laura pulled both children closer, her voice gentle despite her own tears. "Babies, Mommy needs you to understand something. Your daddy, he made choices that hurt people. The police are trying to stop him from making more bad choices. All units suspect now heading toward the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport exit," the radio barked. "Repeat, suspect appears to be heading toward MSP Airport. Speed still exceeding 140 kilometers per hour. Running multiple red lights." Wilson grabbed his radio. "All units notify airport security immediately. TSA needs to be on high alert. Suspect may be attempting to flee by air." "Roger that. Contacting airport police now." My mind raced. The airport, of course. Kevin had that ticket to Mexico City October 25th. That was supposed to be in 10 days, but now his timeline had collapsed. He was trying to escape right now, this minute, with whatever he could grab. "He has a fake passport," I said urgently to Wilson. "Ryan Foster, and he has flight arrangements to Mexico." Wilson nodded grimly, relaying the information through his radio. "Suspect traveling under alias Ryan Michael Foster. Has fraudulent passport and possible flight arrangements to Mexico City. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. Glock 19 may be in his possession. Airport security has been notified." Turner's voice came through slightly breathless. "All checkpoints on high alert. TSA agents have the description and alias. He won't get through." We sat in tense silence, listening to the rapid-fire communications over the radio. Airport police coordinating positions. Highway patrol units joining the pursuit. TSA agents preparing to intercept. "Suspect just abandoned vehicle at Terminal 1 passenger drop-off," Turner reported. "Silver Lexus Minnesota plates. He's on foot carrying a dark backpack. Airport police moving to intercept." Laura's grip on my hand tightened. "What if he gets away?" "He won't," Wilson said with certainty. "Airport security has been notified. Every checkpoint is on high alert. He won't be able to board any aircraft." Jim stood by the window, his elderly hands clasped together. I realized my own hands were shaking. Ethan had buried his face against Laura's side. Claire was crying silently now, her small body shaking with each sob. Visual on suspect. A new voice came through airport security. Male subject, black jacket, gray backpack, heading towards security checkpoint C. He's moving fast, trying to blend into the crowd. "Do not let him through security," Wilson transmitted. "Suspect is wanted for wire fraud, money laundering, domestic violence, and identity theft. Potentially armed with a Glock 19. Copy that. Officers moving to intercept. TSA agents have been alerted." The seconds ticked by like hours. I could picture it, Kevin weaving through the crowded terminal, that backpack slung over his shoulder, the fake Ryan Foster passport clutched in his hand. Desperate, dangerous, cornered. "Suspect has approached security checkpoint C," the airport officer reported. "He's presenting documentation to TSA. Agent is scanning the passport. Agent has flagged it. Document is not clearing the system." "Secure the suspect," Wilson ordered. "Do not let him leave the checkpoint area." "Suspect is becoming agitated. He's arguing with the TSA agent. Our officers are moving in now. Suspect has spotted us. He's backing away from the checkpoint." I held my breath. Laura was gripping both children now, all three of them crying together. Jim's knuckles were white as he gripped the window frame. "Suspect is looking for exits, but all routes are blocked." The voice continued, tension crackling through every word. "He's trapped between our officers and TSA. Detective Turner has entered the terminal. We have him surrounded." Then Turner's voice came through, clear and final. "Suspect cornered at security checkpoint C. Detective Turner and airport police closing in. Suspect has no escape route." A pause that felt like an eternity. "Suspect in custody." The words echoed through Jim's living room. Laura let out a sob of relief. Wilson exhaled heavily. Jim turned from the window, his face sagging with exhaustion. It was over. Kevin was caught. My family was safe, but as I looked at Laura's tear-stained face and the fear in my grandchildren's eyes, I knew the hardest part, the healing, was only just beginning. Officer Wilson drove us to the airport in his patrol car, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Laura sat beside me in the back seat, her hand gripping mine. She hadn't spoken since we left Jim's house. Claire and Ethan had stayed behind with Jim. They didn't need to see this. Detective Turner had called 20 minutes earlier. "I need you at the airport for formal identification. We've got him, but I need Laura to confirm his identity for the record." A uniformed officer met us at Terminal 1 and escorted us through corridors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." We were led into a small observation room with a one-way mirror. "He can't see you," the officer explained, "but you'll be able to see and hear everything." Through the glass, I saw Kevin standing in the center of a circle of at least 8 police officers. His hands were trembling. The confident man who had fooled us all looked small and desperate now, his jacket rumpled, sweat staining his collar. Detective Turner stood directly in front of him, an official document in hand. "Ryan Michael Foster." Turner's voice boomed through the speakers. "Also known as Kevin Rhodes, you are under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, identity theft, domestic violence, and conspiracy to flee prosecution." Kevin's face went pale. Beside me, Laura drew in a sharp breath. 2 officers moved forward with Kevin's gray backpack and began removing items one by one. "See $85,000 in cash." One officer announced, pulling out thick stacks of $100 bills. "Withdrawn from multiple accounts. United States passport issued to Ryan Michael Foster," another stated, holding up the blue booklet. "Flight itinerary to Mexico City departing today at 6:45 p.m. financial documents for offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Panama, and the British Virgin Islands. Then one of the officers reached toward Kevin's waistband. "Weapon!" the officer called out sharply. "Glock 19 9mm fully loaded." Turner's expression hardened. "Add illegal possession of a concealed weapon to the charges." "It's registered," Kevin protested weakly. "Registered to Kevin Rhodes in Minnesota," Turner shot back. "But you're not Kevin Rhodes. You're Ryan Foster, wanted in Nebraska. That makes this weapon illegally possessed by a fugitive using a false identity." Kevin's shoulders sagged as he realized how thoroughly trapped he was. An officer stepped forward and began reading, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As the Miranda rights were being read, Kevin's eyes swept across the room and seemed to lock onto the one-way mirror where we stood. "Laura," Kevin called out, his voice cracking. "Laura, please. You have to believe me. I can explain everything." Laura went rigid beside me. "Laura." Kevin's voice rose desperately. "Baby, please. This isn't what it looks like. I love you. I love our kids. You have to believe me." "He can't see you," Wilson reminded her quietly. But Kevin kept talking, his words tumbling out frantically. "I was going to tell you everything. The money was for us, for our family. Please, Laura, don't let them do this to me." Laura turned away from the glass. Her face twisted with disgust. She buried her face against my shoulder. "I can't listen to this," she whispered. "Officers, remove the suspect," Turner ordered. 2 policemen moved forward with handcuffs. Kevin struggled briefly, still calling Laura's name, but within seconds his hands were secured behind his back. As they led him toward the exit, he made one last attempt to turn back. Laura, our children need their father, please." Then he was gone, escorted through a side door by 4 officers. Turner entered our observation room moments later. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," he said to Laura. "But I needed your official identification." "Is it really over?" Laura asked. "Kevin Rhodes is in custody," Turner replied. "He'll be transferred to federal detention tonight. But I need you to understand something." He looked at both of us seriously. "We have evidence of at least 7 associates in his network. This investigation is far from over. Stay vigilant. Keep your doors locked. If anyone suspicious contacts you, call me immediately." Laura nodded numbly. As we left the observation room, I held Laura close. Through the windows, I could see Kevin being loaded into a police transport van, his head down, hands cuffed behind his back. How did I not see it? Laura whispered, tears streaming down her face. I pulled my daughter closer. "Because he was very good at hiding," I said quietly. "But now he has nowhere left to hide." The van's doors slammed shut with a metallic clang. Kevin Rhodes, Ryan Foster, whatever his real name was, had finally run out of places to run. 6 months later, on a peaceful spring morning, I stood in the kitchen of our new home in St. Paul, watching Claire and Ethan play in the backyard. The house was smaller than what we'd had before, but sunlight streamed through every window, and for the first time in half a year, I felt truly safe. I flipped pancakes on the griddle as Laura came downstairs, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked different now, lighter somehow, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Morning, Dad," she said, pouring coffee. We'd lost a lot in Kevin's aftermath. The lake cabin was gone, sold to pay legal fees. $125,000 of our investments had vanished into Kevin's offshore accounts, never to be recovered. But we'd won the battle for the Minnetonka house. After 3 months of court proceedings, the fraudulent property transfer was invalidated. We'd sold it anyway, too many memories, and bought this modest home close to Jim. Most importantly, Laura and the children were safe. Kevin Rhodes' Ryan Michael Foster had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. 15 years for Nebraska charges, 10 for Minnesota running consecutively. No parole for at least 20 years. He would be 68 before walking free again. His entire network had been dismantled. 7 associates arrested across 4 states. The FBI had seized over $4 million. Turner kept me updated on every development. "I'm meeting with Dr. Patterson this afternoon," Laura mentioned, stirring her coffee. I smiled. Dr. Patricia Patterson was Laura's therapist. They'd been meeting twice weekly for the past 6 months, working through the trauma of the marriage and abuse. The healing was slow, but Laura was making real progress. She'd even started volunteering at a women's shelter downtown, helping other domestic violence survivors. Claire and Ethan were healing as well. Claire had struggled initially angry and confused, but therapy and our stable routine made a difference. Ethan, younger and more resilient, bounced back faster, though nightmares still came sometimes. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Kevin's brother Chris and his wife Nicole. Laura stiffened. "What are they doing here?" I opened the door cautiously. Chris looked exhausted, his face lined with shame. "Mr. Mitchell," he began, "we have no right to be here, but we needed to apologize. To Laura, to the kids. We had no idea." Nicole added, tears in her eyes. "We didn't know what Kevin was doing. When the FBI interviewed us, we were devastated." Laura appeared behind me. "It's okay, come in." Over coffee, Chris and Nicole explained how the FBI had cleared them. They'd been deceived by Kevin, too. They wanted to maintain a relationship with Claire and Ethan. The children shouldn't lose their entire paternal family because of their father's crimes. Laura agreed. After they left, she turned to me, eyes glistening. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "Thank you for saving us. I don't know where we'd be without you." I held my daughter close. "You're stronger than you think, sweetheart." Through the window, I watched Claire push Ethan on the swing set Jim had helped me install. Their laughter carried on the spring breeze. This wasn't the life I'd imagined 6 months ago, but it was good. Honest. Wealth, I'd learned, wasn't measured in lake cabins or investment portfolios. It was measured in the people you protected, the family you kept safe. My phone buzzed. Detective Turner. "Mitchell!" His voice came through. "Good news. We just arrested the last member of Kevin's network in Panama. It's officially over. The case is closed." I felt tension I'd carried for half a year finally release. "Thank you, Detective, for everything. You did good, Mitchell. You saved your family." As I ended the call, Claire and Ethan came running inside, faces flushed with joy. "Grandpa, come play with us!" Ethan shouted. "Please, Grandpa," Claire added, tugging my hand. I looked at Laura. She smiled and nodded. I stepped out into the sunshine, feeling warmth on my face. For the first time in 6 months, I felt completely safe. The nightmare was over. The healing had begun. Claire and Ethan were safe. Laura was safe. My family was whole again, and that was all that mattered. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize how easily trust can be weaponized against us. I never imagined I'd become part of a dad revenge story, but when your family is threatened, you discover strengths you didn't know you had. This family story taught me that vigilance isn't paranoia, it's protection. My advice: don't be like me. Don't wait until a Tuesday morning discovery shatters your world. If something feels wrong in your family story, investigate it. Trust your instincts. I ignored small signs for months. Laura's bruises she explained away, Kevin's vague answers about his work, his controlling behavior that seemed like devotion. The lesson I learned through this dad revenge journey is simple but profound. Financial documents don't lie, but people do. Verify everything. Check public records. Question inconsistencies. Your family's safety depends on it. God reminds us in Proverbs that the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. I was simple for too long. When I finally acted, it became a dad revenge mission, born not of hatred, but of desperate love for my daughter and grandchildren. Wealth means nothing if the people you love aren't safe. I lost $125,000 and a lake cabin, but I gained something infinitely more valuable, my family's freedom from a monster who wore the mask of a devoted husband. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the very end. I'd love to hear your perspective. What would you do if you found yourself in Frank's impossible situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing so you won't miss future stories. A quick note: while inspired by real financial fraud cases and domestic abuse patterns, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your preference, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.